Emma Caldwell hadn't planned to make the bed that morning. She only did it because the silence between her and Noah Bennett felt heavy enough to fold. When her hand brushed under his pillow, she felt paper, the kind that shouldn't be there. A soft, deliberate fold. She pulled it out, thinking maybe it was a receipt or a list. But when she opened it, her heart clenched. "I can't keep doing this in secret. I need you to choose. No signature. Just a trace of perfume that wasn't hers." For a moment, she stared at it, hearing Noah's laughter from the kitchen, the same voice that had once been her safe place. Now, it sounded rehearsed. She folded the note back, slipped it into her sleeve, and realized something unspoken. The version of Noah she loved might have never been real. Emma couldn't stop replaying the note's words. "I need you to choose." Choose who? Choose what? That night, Noah lay beside her, his breathing slow, untroubled, as if the world was simple. She studied the side of his face illuminated by the streetlight seeping through the curtains, the same features she once traced with her fingers, now foreign, distant. His phone buzzed once, screen flickering with a name she didn't recognize. He stirred, turned it face down, and whispered, "Go back to sleep, Em." But she didn't. She stared at the shadow between them, realizing how long it had been there. Quiet, invisible, patient. Somewhere between trust and fear. She understood. Love was no longer safety. It was evidence waiting to surface. The next morning, Noah Bennett was unusually attentive. Coffee already brewed, his tone sweeter, eyes softer. Emma noticed how he avoided her gaze just a second too long. "Row night?" he asked, and she almost laughed. She wanted to ask him who the note was for, but instead said, "Just couldn't sleep." The lie came easily, frighteningly so. As he kissed her forehead before leaving for work, Emma caught the scent of a perfume that didn't belong to her. Faint, floral, hauntingly familiar from the note. She watched him walk down the driveway, sunlight cutting through his figure like an accusation. She stood in the doorway long after he was gone, realizing she wasn't waiting for him to come back. She was waiting for the truth to arrive. Emma began her quiet investigation that afternoon. The note lay hidden in her journal. Between pages she never showed anyone. She searched drawers, messages, the spaces where routine hid secrets. Noah's patterns had changed. Longer showers, muted phone calls, sudden errands. She told herself she wasn't spying, only confirming what she already knew, but feared to admit when she found a second piece of folded paper inside his coat pocket. Blank, freshly torn, her breath caught. Someone had written recently, then destroyed it. The ghost of a message. The realization was clear and cruel. She wasn't looking for a mistake. She was tracing a ritual. That evening, Noah came home early. Too early. His smile was bright, his charm sharpened like a knife polished for performance. "Miss me?" he teased, pulling Emma into an embrace that felt staged. Her pulse raced as she felt the hidden note pressed against her wrist beneath her sleeve. For a second, she almost confronted him. Almost. But then he said her name, the way he always did when he wanted to end a storm before it began. Soft, coaxing, rehearsed. She smiled back, hollow and perfect, matching his rhythm. The conversation danced around ordinary things, dinner, work, weekend plans, but every word was a negotiation of silence. The truth hovered between them, a note without a name, waiting for the courage to be read aloud. That night, Emma Caldwell waited until Noah Bennett fell asleep. His breathing steadied, rhythmic. The false calm of a man certain he wouldn't be questioned. The glow from his phone lay against the sheets, pulsing faint blue against his hand. She hesitated only once before unlocking it. A pattern, a passcode she'd seen him use before, back when they still shared passwords and secrets. The screen opened to messages, familiar names, harmless exchanges, until one stood out. "Miss you already. Same place tomorrow." The name above it wasn't a person. It was a place. Riverside. She stared at the word as if it might shift meaning. But it didn't. Every letter felt like proof. And yet she felt nothing. No tears, no rage. Just an eerie, hollow stillness. Like she'd stepped outside her own body and couldn't find her way back in. Morning came without color. The air between them was polite, practiced. Noah hummed as he buttoned his shirt, the same casual rhythm she used to love. But Emma watched differently now. Every pause in his words felt like punctuation to a lie. She noticed the phone again, tucked carefully into his jacket pocket, as though it held more than numbers. When he left, she waited exactly 7 minutes before checking the drawer where he kept receipts and spare keys. She found an unfamiliar key attached to a tag marked Riverside. Her hands went cold. The word again. The same place that text had mentioned. For the first time, she wondered if Noah's secrets were less about someone else and more about who he had become when she wasn't looking. By noon, the name Riverside haunted her. She searched it online. Hotels, cafes, cabins, until one matched: Riverside Inn, a boutique hotel just outside town. The reviews were ordinary. The photos weren't. In one, a couple's reflection in a mirror caught her attention. Blurry, unposed. The man's posture, his jacket, the tilt of his head. It was Noah. She zoomed in until the pixels fractured, but the truth didn't. Her breath trembled. It wasn't just an affair, it was a routine, a place of repetition, of choices made over and over again. She closed the laptop softly, the way someone closes a casket, knowing the body inside was still warm. That evening, she called Lily Harper, the only person who could hear the truth without dressing it in reason. Emma spoke quietly, as if the walls could betray her. "I found something," she said. Lily's voice steadied her. "Do you want the truth, or do you want to keep pretending?" Emma didn't answer. The silence between them said enough. Lily warned her not to confront Noah yet, to gather proof. Help twist it. "He'll make you question yourself." Emma looked out the window where dusk settled like ash across the sky. For the first time, she felt the weight of what Lily meant. Not that Noah might lie, but that he might make her believe she had. When Noah came home that night, Emma smiled. The kind of smile that concealed fire behind glass. She cooked his favorite meal, asked about his day, and listened as he spoke freely, unaware that every word built another wall between them. His laughter filled the room, confident and practiced. When he excused himself to take a work call, Emma watched him step onto the porch, his voice low, words clipped. She couldn't hear them, but she didn't need to. The tone told her everything. It wasn't love in his voice anymore. It was performance. And for the first time, she realized she wasn't afraid of what she'd find. She was afraid of how long she'd known. By the third day, Noah Bennett had started to notice Emma Caldwell's quiet shift. Her eyes didn't search for reassurance anymore. They studied, calculated. When she asked him simple questions like, "Where were you yesterday?" his answers grew shorter, quicker, more defensive. "You're imagining things," he said, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Gaslighting wasn't new, but now she recognized it. The artful redirection, the subtle guilt. "You've been distant lately," he added, turning the suspicion toward her. Emma almost smiled. He was predictable now. Every lie followed the same rhythm, every denial rehearsed. She realized that manipulation wasn't always loud. Sometimes it came wrapped in gentleness, spoken through a man who once knew exactly how to make her doubt herself. Later that evening, Emma began tracing the patterns in his lies. The messages, the tone shifts, the pauses when he spoke. Every inconsistency felt like a fingerprint left behind. She began keeping notes, not out of paranoia, but survival. A diary turned into a map of deceit. She realized Noah wasn't improvising. He was recycling. Words he'd said months ago were resurfacing. Phrases rehearsed to sound spontaneous. "You're overthinking it. You know I'd never hurt you." They used to calm her. Now they echoed like code. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. Measured, patient, practiced. For the first time, Emma understood that Noah didn't love her. He studied her. And that was far more dangerous. Memory became her tormentor. She replayed their beginning. How he once wrote her morning notes, cooked her favorite meals, made her believe love could be both wild and safe. The same gestures now felt tainted, like rehearsals for control. Emma remembered the night he first said, "You're not like anyone I've ever known." Back then it sounded like devotion. Now it sounded like design. Each flashback fractured her. The man in those memories looked like Noah, sounded like Noah, but wasn't. He'd built a version of himself that mirrored her desires, reflected her insecurities, and then weaponized them. Love, she realized, had always been the stage. She was just the audience who stayed too long. Emma started documenting everything. Times, dates, words, the rhythm of his deception. She no longer cried when she wrote. She analyzed. The pages filled with patterns that revealed more than Noah ever confessed. Each entry made her feel both powerful and sick. She wasn't sure if she was building a case or a confession. Sometimes she caught herself writing his words exactly as he'd said them. Soft, persuasive, venomous in kindness. She realized how much of her voice he'd absorbed, how many of her truths he'd borrowed. What scared her most wasn't losing him. It was the thought that he'd already rewritten who she was, and she was only now finding her way back. It happened faster than she expected. Noah walked in quietly, catching her off guard as she closed her journal. His eyes, calm but sharp, landed on it. "What's that?" he asked. Tone casual but blade thin. "Just notes," she replied. "About what?" He took a step closer. The air between them turned electric, fragile, dangerous. She smiled to mask the tremor in her hand. "About us," she said softly. He tilted his head, studying her the way one studies a lie they can't quite prove. "You don't trust me anymore," he whispered. And for the first time, Emma didn't deny it. The silence that followed was her quiet rebellion. The first moment she chose not to explain herself to the man who taught her to doubt. The argument began over nothing. A misplaced key, a forgotten call. But it ended somewhere darker. Noah Bennett stood in the doorway, his calm unraveling thread by thread. "You're making things up again, Emma," he said, his voice sharp enough to slice through the silence. But Emma Caldwell didn't flinch this time. She watched him closely, the way a person studies a storm they've already survived once. His anger wasn't passion, it was panic. The more she refused to react, the more his control slipped. "You think I'm lying?" he demanded. "I don't think," she whispered. "I know." For the first time, his mask cracked, a flash of guilt, fear, something almost human. And then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. He smiled, the practiced kind, and said, "You've been writing too much, Emma." After Noah left, Emma searched the one place she hadn't, the glove compartment of his car. Her hands shook as she opened it, half expecting nothing, half fearing everything. Inside, she found a photograph, folded, old, worn around the edges. A woman's smile, confident, familiar in ways that made Emma's stomach twist. Written on the back, "Until you choose." The same words as the note. Her reflection in the car window looked foreign, haunted. She wasn't sure if she'd just found the truth or another layer of the lie. But one thing was certain. The woman existed. She had a name, a face, and a place in Noah's life that Emma had never been allowed to occupy. She couldn't stop staring at the woman in the photograph, the confidence in her eyes, the tilt of her head. There was something chillingly familiar about it. That night, Emma followed the breadcrumb trail, the Riverside Inn's online guest reviews. Among them, a username appeared more than once, CM. Each review spoke of quiet mornings and someone worth waiting for. And then Emma saw the name in full, Clara Monroe. It wasn't just the name that caught her, it was the tone. The phrasing was identical to something Noah once said to Emma. in their first month together. You make mornings worth waking up for. The realization hit her like cold rain. He'd been recycling not just words, but entire moments. He wasn't in love. He was performing love on repeat. The next day, Emma drove to the Riverside Inn. It was smaller than she imagined, quiet, intimate, almost painfully beautiful. She stood in the lobby, hands clenched, asking the manager if Clara Monroe was staying there. "She checked out this morning," the woman said politely. Emma felt her throat tighten. Did she leave anything behind? A pause. Then the manager handed her a sealed envelope with her name on it. Emma Caldwell. Her breath caught. The paper smelled faintly of the same perfume from the note. Inside was a single line. "You deserve to know what he promised us both." Emma didn't move. For the first time, the betrayal had a shape, a scent, a signature. It wasn't abstract anymore. It was real. It was real. That night, Emma sat in her car outside their house, the note from Clara Monroe open on the passenger seat. Noah's car wasn't there. She stared at the handwriting, graceful, steady, assured. Not angry, not bitter, just certain. It was the certainty that broke her. She realized Clara wasn't her rival. She was her mirror, another woman who had fallen for the same illusion. Two hearts orbiting the same lie. Emma felt no hatred now, only grief for the parts of herself that Noah had borrowed and given away. As the porch light flickered on, she whispered to no one, "You didn't choose either of us." The words hung in the dark like a verdict, final and true. Noah Bennett came home late, later than usual, with the kind of calm that only follows a calculated silence. Emma Caldwell waited for him at the kitchen table, the envelope from Clara Monroe placed neatly beside her coffee mug. He noticed it immediately. His eyes flicked from the envelope to her face, searching for weakness. "You went through my things?" he asked softly, too softly. His voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed, the kind of tone that made guilt bloom where none belonged. "I just wanted the truth," Emma said. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. "And this is what you think it looks like?" The gaslight flickered to life between them, invisible but burning. For a moment, she almost apologized. Almost. Then she remembered Clara's words. "You deserve to know." Noah shifted tactics effortlessly. He reached across the table, touching Emma Caldwell's hand, his voice soft as silk. "I made mistakes, but not like that. You know me." His tone, warm and practiced, hit the familiar rhythm of redemption. "You've been stressed, Em. You read into things." The performance was flawless, remorseful, but not guilty, loving yet evasive. Emma watched, detached, as if observing a stranger replaying a scene he'd perfected. Every apology carried subtext, every gesture an agenda. "You want to hate me because it's easier than forgiving," he murmured, eyes glistening on cue. But forgiveness wasn't the problem anymore. Believing him was. For the first time, Emma saw his words for what they truly were. Control disguised as care. Over the next days, Noah's manipulation evolved into something subtler. Compliments, nostalgia. Touches that lingered just long enough to confuse empathy with affection. Emma Caldwell began doubting the edges of her own reality again, catching herself wondering if she'd overreacted. That was his art. Rewriting perception until guilt felt like devotion. He spoke of starting fresh, of letting go of old versions of us. But every promise he made was recycled from their past, lines spoken to reset the narrative. She smiled through it, but inside, she documented each word like evidence. This wasn't reconciliation. It was a cover-up. And he was counting on her heart to keep quiet long enough for him to rewrite the ending. When Lily Harper visited, Emma finally spoke the truth out loud. The words came slow, hesitant, like confession. Lily listened, her expression tightening with each detail. "You're not crazy, Em. He's breaking you down piece by piece," she said. Emma looked at her, tears forming but refusing to fall. "He makes me feel guilty for breathing," she whispered. Lily reached across the table, gripping her hand. "Then stop apologizing for surviving." For the first time in months, Emma felt seen, not as a partner, but as a person. Lily's clarity pierced the fog Noah had built around her. That night, Emma didn't write in her journal. She simply sat by the window, breathing without permission. By the end of the week, Emma understood what had always been true. The relationship wasn't built on love, but control. Every memory she'd once cherished was a method. Every apology a reset button. Noah Bennett didn't want her to leave. He wanted her to stay uncertain. That was the foundation of his power. So she began responding differently. Shorter answers, fewer reactions, a calm so quiet it unnerved him. He started watching her more carefully, realizing his words no longer landed where they used to. One evening when he said, "I love you," Emma met his eyes and replied, "I know." For the first time, the silence that followed belonged entirely to her. Emma Caldwell began her exit like someone folding away a life, piece by piece. Every night after Noah Bennett fell asleep, she packed one small item. A notebook, a book of poems, a favorite mug. Things he'd never notice missing until it was too late. She transferred her money quietly, deleted shared passwords, memorized her freedom like a script. It wasn't fear driving her anymore. It was clarity. She realized that leaving him wasn't about running away. It was about returning to herself. The sound of his even breathing from the other room used to comfort her. Now, it marked the countdown between captivity and release. Each tick of the clock whispered the same truth. Love should never require silence as sacrifice. By the fourth night, Noah noticed something. Maybe the stillness in her voice, maybe the absence in her eyes. He lingered around her more, watching, measuring. "You've been quiet lately," he said, feigning concern. Emma smiled faintly. "I'm just tired." The lie tasted different now. Not fearful, but strategic. Every word she spoke became part of her escape route. That evening, when he kissed her cheek, she didn't recoil or lean in. She simply endured it, a ghost rehearsing detachment. Noah's intuition stirred. He could sense the shift, but couldn't name it. Control was slipping through his fingers, and Emma had finally learned how to disappear in plain sight. On Friday night, Noah suggested dinner, her favorite restaurant. It felt rehearsed, almost ceremonial. Emma Caldwell agreed without hesitation. Over candlelight, he played the role perfectly. Attentive, affectionate, regretful. But Emma didn't listen to his words anymore. She studied his rhythm, the way he filled silence to avoid truth. Halfway through the meal, he reached across the table, thumb brushing her hand. "I don't want to lose you," he said. She smiled faintly. "You already did." For a moment, his mask faltered. The waiter approached, shattering the tension. Emma excused herself, walking to the restroom. But instead, she walked straight out the door. She didn't run. She just kept walking, steady, unshaken, as if she'd been planning this her entire life. Hours later, Emma stood in a rented apartment, small, quiet, and hers. She left her phone behind, deleted her digital footprints, and replaced her reflection with a new one. The silence was raw, but clean. She brewed coffee just to hear the sound of something familiar that wasn't him. Freedom didn't arrive as joy. It arrived as peace that hurt to feel. Every bruise he'd left on her confidence began to fade in that silence. She looked at the moon through the window and whispered, "You can't rewrite this one." For the first time, the air didn't listen for his voice. It listened for hers. Days turned to weeks. Emma Caldwell never reached out, never checked if Noah Bennett had noticed her absence. One morning, while unpacking the last box, she found the original note, the one she'd hidden beneath his pillow. The paper was worn, edges frayed, words fading. "I can't keep doing this in secret." She smiled, realizing it wasn't just Clara's plea. It had become her own prophecy. She placed the note in a drawer, shut it gently, and turned toward the open window. The breeze carried no perfume, no trace of deceit. Only air, free and hers. For the first time in years, Emma didn't feel watched, controlled, or small. She felt like someone new, someone she'd written back into existence. 3 weeks later, Emma Caldwell drove back to the house she'd once called home. It was empty now. The curtains drawn, the garden overgrown. The silence wasn't cruel anymore. It was closure wearing quiet clothes. She stepped inside, her footsteps echoing through the hollow space where laughter and arguments once lived side by side. On the dresser lay a single mug, hers. And beside it, the faint smell of his cologne. She didn't flinch. Memories rose like ghosts, but they no longer haunted her. They simply existed. She touched the wall one last time, whispered goodbye to the version of herself that had waited too long, and walked out without looking back. Freedom, she realized, wasn't loud. It was the sound of a door closing gently behind you. When she reached her car, there was something waiting on the driver's seat. A small white envelope with her name written in Noah Bennett's handwriting. Her chest tightened, not from fear, but from finality. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "I'm sorry for everything. You were right." She left too, no signature, no explanation. For a moment she stared at the ink, the words shaky, uneven, not the confident script she remembered. The note wasn't a confession. It was a surrender. Emma folded it once and placed it in the glove compartment beside the photograph she'd once found. 2 lies, 1 apology, a perfect symmetry of endings. Later that night, she sat at her small kitchen table, the city hum outside her window. For the first time in months, she opened her journal, not to record pain, but peace. She wrote one line. "He taught me what love isn't." The pen hovered, then she added, "And I taught myself what it is." Her reflection in the window looked unfamiliar, softer. The woman staring back wasn't the one who waited beneath lies. She was the one who walked through them. She realized she no longer needed answers, revenge, or closure from him. The truth had already done its job. It had freed her. And that, she decided, was enough. A week later, Emma Caldwell received one last letter, this time postmarked, stamped, deliberate. No return address. Inside was a photograph of Clara Monroe standing by a riverside, wind in her hair, eyes turned toward the water. On the back, just one sentence. "He said the same thing to both of us, but you were the one who left." Emma traced the words with her thumb, a faint smile forming. It wasn't rivalry. It was recognition. 2 women who had survived the same performance, now free from its script. She placed the photograph on her shelf, not as a reminder of pain, but proof that endings could hold grace too. Months later, Emma Caldwell found herself changing the sheets in her new home. A simple, quiet act. As she fluffed the pillows, something slipped from beneath one of them. A folded page from her own journal. The first entry she'd written after finding the original note. She unfolded it slowly. The words were shaky, uncertain, full of pain. A woman still lost inside someone else's world. She smiled, folded it again, and placed it back beneath the pillow. Not as a secret, but as a reminder. The past would always live somewhere in her story, but now it belonged where it started, under a pillow between endings and beginnings.